Tisa Tells lies about Diddy's 2 convictions for Mann Act guaranteeing his bankruptcy, ladies and gentlemen. These people are sinister. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, StraightGameTV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, click the thumbs up button. Also subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be the one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, some of these people have lost their mind. Like I said, once again, Tisa Tells has absolutely gone bonkers, ladies and gentlemen, with these lies. It is crazy. It is crazy. Like I said, your boy Delray here, and what we have to break down is this, ladies and gentlemen. Tisa Tells basically claimed that Diddy being convicted of the 2 the Mann Act charges, right? First she was yelling out Rico, Rico, Rico. That didn't work out. Now all of a sudden she's pushed she's moved the bar. The bar has moved a little bit forward, backward, forward, whichever way you want to go with it, right? Now it's the 2 convictions of the Mann Act guarantee Diddy's bankruptcy, ladies and gentlemen. What? Then it was the escape from prison plot. That she supposedly uncovered, right? Another lie, if you will, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to go over this because once again, this is getting out of hand, if you will, right? Tisa Tells claims that Diddy's 2 federal convictions will automatically lead to bankruptcy. Oh, wow. So basically, she works for what? The IRS? She works for what? His financial institutions? What? His accountant? No, ladies and gentlemen. No, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be clear from the jump, ladies and gentlemen. That is 100% false. Legally, financially, and factually. Legally, financially, and factually. So look. In this episode of Straight Game, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be getting into the facts of what this really means and why people do some of the sinister things that they do, right? We know what Diddy was actually convicted of, right? And let me tell you why bankruptcy is not a guaranteed consequence based on convictions of the Mann Act, ladies and gentlemen. The difference between civil liability and criminal convictions are totally different, ladies and gentlemen. Totally different, right? And how creators like Tisa Tells weaponize information to stir up outrage, to boost her views, if you will, right? To increase her views. And so when you understand that, you're going to understand like a lot of stuff that Tisa Tells is pushing. As we see, those numbers are going down. Those numbers that they're dwindling down, she out there, scraping and scrapping, trying to come up with these salacious, clickbaitish titles and information that she can't basically get behind with any kind of factual certainty or documentation, if you will, right? And it's just basically gossip. It's gossip now. But this one right here, it's no different than the prison escape story. It's funny, man, because it's like it's funny, like when you see this, I was like, oh wow, and this popped up on my screen. I'm like, oh wow, she's saying first it was Rico and how much they had Rico from a year ago. It was Rico and they got it, versus what was being reported, the lies that were being reported outside the courthouse during the time of the trial. But this one here, basically stating that the two convictions guarantee a Diddy's bankruptcy, ladies and gentlemen, right? Let's talk facts over fiction. Let's talk facts over fiction for a minute, right? So now, we know that Diddy was convicted of transportation to engage in prostitution, right? In violation of the Mann Act. So we know that. And there's no way in history that we heard that any charge like that, bankrupting anybody, I don't know if the judge will impose any kind of fines or anything like that. But we know for a fact that civil liability hurts you way more financially than criminal liability from certain aspects of the game, and from all reports in regards to Diddy's finances. You know, he was worth upward of $400 million, if you will, if not more. You know what I mean? This is just a reported net worth of Sean P. Diddy Combs, right? Right. So we know he was acquitted of racketeering and all of that. You know, Tisa Tells is really in her feelings about that, y'all. She's really in her feelings about that. You know, to go this low talking about the man's finances and how 2 Mann Act convictions basically guarantees his bankruptcy is crazy. It's outright crazy, right? And so let me emphasize this. You know, let me truly emphasize this, ladies and gentlemen. No part of these convictions that Diddy has received mandates any kind of bankruptcy, ladies and gentlemen. We've seen that Diddy had 8 attorneys. And if all assumptions are correct, right, he paid each of them $1 million. Each of those attorneys received $1 million. Let's say that's $8 million. Paid Cassie 20, right? That's $28 million. And he didn't look like he was hurting. For the house down in Star Island, he paid that off, right? Prior to going to prison so that he could possibly put it up to get bail. Ladies and gentlemen, what is Tisa Tells talking about? What is she talking about, ladies and gentlemen? This needs to stop. This needs to stop. Listen. And I need you to understand a criminal conviction can affect reputations, endorsements, and business partnerships, right? But it does not forcibly strip assets or wipe out wealth unless, ladies and gentlemen, there's a financial penalty ordered or he's sued civilly and loses, resulting in a judgment, ladies and gentlemen. This criminal conviction, right, does not forcibly strip assets, right? So what Tisa Tells is talking about, she has no knowledge of, has not put out any proof, but yet would do a video saying that, right? And it's totally not true. And the cold part about it is she would have no problem doing this. This is like her MO. You know what I mean? Listen, and another thing, Tisa Tells skipped over those legal realities that I just told you about, ladies and gentlemen. But here on StraightGameTV, we won't. We won't. But it's sinister that people do certain things, right? Like I said, you got to understand. One more time, a criminal conviction can affect your reputation, endorsements, business, all of those things. As we've seen the Revolt TV thing go, they took his Sean John clothes out of the stores and things like that. Those are the things that a criminal indictment or conviction can affect, right? But it does not forcibly strip assets or wipe out wealth unless, right? These are the facts, the legal facts, right? There's a financial penalty ordered, like I said, the judge imposed some kind of fine, unless Diddy is sued civilly and loses, resulting in a judgment, right? Tisa Tells failed. She just failed miserably and skipped over the legal realities and took you into her fantasy land. Is basically what she did. She took you into her fantasy land, and y'all got to believe this. Come in and shut the door, because I don't need nobody else to hear it. Because if they hear it, then they're going to interrupt me telling you this fantasy that I'm telling you, right? Right? But we won't do that over here on Straight Game TV. So I need you to understand the facts, ladies and gentlemen. The question is, does a criminal conviction, right, automatically lead to bankruptcy, right? Here's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the truth. Bankruptcy is a voluntary, court-ordered financial status, not a criminal punishment. Bankruptcy is a voluntary or court-ordered financial status, not a criminal punishment. Number one, right? So let's break it down. Bankruptcy can be filed under Chapter 7, 11, or 13, depending on the financial situation. A criminal conviction alone does not lead to it. It only leads to imprisonment, fines, or probation. If Diddy is sued civilly and loses, a large financial judgment, yes, bankruptcy might become a strategic option. It's always strategic, right? But so far, Diddy has not been ordered to pay any monetary penalties in criminal court. So how in the hell did Tisa Tells come to the conclusion that Diddy, these two Mann Act convictions are somehow going to guarantee? No. She didn't say possibly. She didn't say could. She said guarantee. It's preposterous, man. It's preposterous, right? And let's remember, ladies and gentlemen, Diddy still owns portions of Bad Boy, has stakes in media properties, and reported assets in real estate and music catalogs. So what is Tisa Tells talking about? A lot of people out here ought to be ashamed of themselves, man, listening to this girl. It's crazy, man. It just gets crazier and crazier. Like I said, once again, when you really truly understand what's going on, this is a miscarriage of YouTubeism. This is a miscarriage of justice in YouTube world, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, Tisa Tells and the misinformation machine. It is. And like I said, so much so that let's address what's really going on, y'all. Let's address what's really on. Tisa Tells is not a journalist. She's not a lawyer. She's not a legal analyst. And by her own admission, she's not reading any kind of information that factually backs up what she's saying or citing any kind of legal experts. She says, my sources, these invisible make-believe sources that she has not brung on her channel to confirm or deny any information, ladies and gentlemen, right? Like I said, what she's doing is very, very dangerous, misleading her audience with clickbait. Straight up clickbait. Misrepresenting the federal law, saying that Diddy's convictions, right? And bankruptcy is a federal act, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, when I say misrepresenting the federal law, not only is she misrepresenting, the information she's putting out, but basically saying that, hey, you know what? These convictions guarantee his bankruptcy. Not only that, to even say something like that and really not know a person's a financial wherewithal is totally irresponsible. It's totally irresponsible, right? And Tisa Tells is also using inflammatory language like bankruptcy guaranteed, ladies and gentlemen. Bankruptcy guaranteed to stir up hate, right? To stir up hate. Like I said, she wants you to hate Diddy because she don't really like him. Like I said, Diddy's escape plan from prison. Where did that come from? It was backed up by nothing. Zero. Just conversation played behind pictures of Diddy and Cassie and all of this other craziness, right? Listen, this isn't just irresponsible, right? It's exploitative. It's exploitative, ladies and gentlemen. It capitalizes off of Black trauma, misrepresents the justice system, and poisons real discourse, ladies and gentlemen, for a few thousand YouTube views. You got to understand that. And it does nothing for the people looking to be truly informed about what's going on. Nothing. Absolutely, positively nothing. You know what I mean? And so, that's why platforms like StraightGameTV exist. We're going to keep it real. We're going to keep it 100. Whether we get 1,000 views or 100,000 views, right? We just gonna keep it 100 with you. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you can always rely on coming back here and say, hold on, you know what? I heard this somewhere before, and here is the facts. And like I said, usually we back it up with documentation, not just conversation. But in fact, I don't even have to offer you any kind of documentation. Like I say, most of the stuff is factually based, and you can look it up yourself. That's why Tisa Tells does what she does, because she knows that 9 times out of 10, most of her viewers are not going to look up anything because they're emotionally charged, right? And not strategically thinking logically about what's being disseminated to them, ladies and gentlemen. You know, but let's be honest. What could still happen financially in involving Diddy? Because I like to be fair and not speak to just one side of the argument and speak to the whole aspect of it, right? Could Diddy eventually face a financial disaster? Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's possible. If he loses multiple civil suits, you know what I mean? He got like 60 of them. Let's be clear about that. One's being filed by Tony Busby. I don't really think, you know, until we see who these people are, like I told you before, I don't even think they exist, a lot of them. So, and if he's ordered to pay, you know, multi-million-dollar settlements or judgments, you know, sponsors, I mean, most of the sponsors and people that were dealing with him, you know, basically kind of forsake them when he caught when they, I would say when they seen the Cassie tape, if you will, you know. So, you know, but right now he's behind bars. He's in jail. You know, he's enrolled in, you know, a rehabilitation program, trying to, you know, hopefully get his mind right, and preparing for October sentencing. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, Tisa Tells lied. She lied. It's an outright lie, right? No courts have ordered financial seizures, ladies and gentlemen, of Diddy's property or otherwise, bank accounts or otherwise. No judge has declared insolvency, ladies and gentlemen. Right? None. Zero. Zilch. Right? And no bankruptcy has been filed. So how does Tisa Tells go and tell people that the 2-man act charges guarantee Diddy's bankruptcy? It's totally irresponsible. You know what I mean? You know, civil consequences, they might come. We don't know. They haven't gotten here yet, right? But federal convictions do not equal bankruptcy. It's just as simple as that, right? Let's not confuse headlines, right, or YouTube titles with legal realities. You see what I'm saying? You know, and for the people who, I guess, want that for Diddy, hey, man, you know, I'm trying to focus on what I need to do, not what's going to happen with the next person's finances. You know what I mean? I think that's the most important thing for all of us, not just myself, but for all of us, right? You know, look, check this out. There's a lot to criticize Diddy for, ladies and gentlemen. We understand that. You know what I mean? He's not a saint, right? And this federal conviction is serious, you know? But we can't let commentary replace credibility. You can't let commentary, lies, and just outright falsehoods replace credibility and truth. And we definitely can't let unverified YouTubers like Tisa Tells warp public understanding of how the system actually works, because that's basically what's been going on. And that started way before the Diddy trial, right? So before you believe the hype, ask yourself, always ask yourself, and you got to be very serious about asking yourself this, ladies and gentlemen. What's the source, right? What's the source, ladies and gentlemen? Where's the proof at? You know what I mean? And who profits from your outrage? You got to ask yourself once again, what's the source? Where's the proof? And who's going to profit from your outrage, right? Like I said, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you. I had to do this video because, like I said, once again, it's just totally irresponsible. It's totally irresponsible. And like I said, Tisa Tells lied about that. by now, she's gotten paid from telling you that lie. So she doesn't really care. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because she knows nothing about Diddy's finances. But like I said, I wanted to deal with the fact of the matter is that out here misleading people and trying to get them to hate Diddy for her own personal reasons or whatever she thinks, right, is irresponsible. And like I said, to tell a blatant lie, ladies and gentlemen, you gotta understand. Tisa Tells says what? She said what? Diddy's federal convictions guarantee his bankruptcy. Like I said, man, your boy Delray, straight game.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.